And good morning. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Courtney Yockey, and I am with the F&M Regional Growth Alliance, and here today representing the Business Navigator Alliance of South Central and Southeastern Illinois. We have a great presentation stored for you. Today's topic will surround housing development. We have assembled a panel of experts to guide us through today's discussion. Starting off, we have Kara Kozed with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity to discuss their housing rehabilitation program. Then we'll hear from Amy Bashidi with the Illinois Housing Development Authority on community revitalization strategy. And then we have Craig Smith, the mayor of Paris, Illinois, and Jane LaRoche of the Labor's Home Development Corp to discuss housing development examples up in Paris, Illinois, and how that public-private partnership works. So what is the Business Navigator Alliance of Southeastern and South Central Illinois? We are a 6-county regional collaboration working through the Small Business Community Navigator Grant. Assembled is Angela Griffin with Coals Together, Lori Miner with the Sullivan, Illinois Chamber and Economic Development, Risa Shaner with the Crawford County Development Association, Nora Swalls with the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, Bob Colvin and Freddie Schmitty with the Paris Economic Development Corporation, and myself, Courtney Yockey, with the F&M Regional Growth Alliance. This group is charged with professional outreach and technical assistance for local, state, and federal programs. Our mission is to ensure that small businesses in our region are competitive and applying for necessary resources. And our goal is to position you for success by accelerating business recovery and growth. You see the map to the side of your screen for where the Business Navigator Alliance is located. Today's webinar is the 4th in a series of webinars we are hosting each month. These webinars are scheduled for the last Thursday of each month, so please mark your calendars. Visit ilbusinessnavigators.com, that's navigators with an S, and sign up for our newsletter to stay informed. We also host various outreach events, office hours, and offer one-on-one technical assistance. Again, please visit www.ilbusinessnavigators.com to learn more. We will also post the recording from today's presentation and applies and additional supportive materials on the website as well. To get us started today, we have Kara Kozed with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Kara, are you ready to present?
Graham. Good morning, everybody. Like Courtney said, my name is Kara Kozed, and I'm with DCEO in Springfield, Illinois. I run the Housing Rehabilitation Program for the State of Illinois CDBG program. Next slide, Courtney. So the Housing Rehabilitation Program is a federally funded program run through the state of Illinois, where we offer $650,000 in grant funds to low to moderate income communities to improve their housing and rehabilitate and retrofit their properties. Like I said, it's a maximum of 160 or 650,000 in grant funds for 60,000 per household. So basically, we require that 8 homes be done in the scope of work, but you can do obviously more than that. We recommend doing more than that. The 650,000 ceiling did go up this year, so we're grateful for that. And the 60,000 per home also went up because we know construction costs right now are really high. The grants are provided to the residents with safe and sanitary living conditions, and they help stabilize neighborhoods and affordable housing in the community. Those grants also must be sent in to homes that are owner or single family owner occupied. So no rental units. Next slide, Courtney. We have this year $7.5 million in funding. Again, the ceiling is 650,000. The applications that we receive are competitive. The guidebook is going to be at the website provided there, www.illinois.gov DCEO. It is not updated. We are working on the new one for this year right now as we speak, which isn't out of the ordinary. It will be posted, we would say, probably by the end of May. Our competitive deadline this year is for housing is October 19th, 5 p.m. Next slide, Courtney. The eligible activities for housing are, they must be low to moderate income, owner-occupied single-family homes within the city limits. We offer activity delivery, and what that is administration, what most of you probably know is administration funds, $35,000 up to, and that's depending on your scope of work, and that will be kind of set forth, that scale will be in the application when it comes out. And we also do housing administration, which is inspection costs, and that is based also on the number of homes you do. It's a scale of, it starts, we haven't set those numbers because we're working on that, but it'll be in the 30,000s, and it depends on if you do 8 homes or 10 homes or 12 homes. So of course, the more homes you choose to do in your scope of work, the more inspection costs that you will receive. Next slide. So some ineligible activities are construction or rehab of government buildings. Of course, government expenses.
The link.
Pardon me? Courtney, here, I can't hear you.
I don't know what that was. Go ahead.
Cost of operating and maintaining public facilities, servicing or refinancing of existing debt for the city, we cannot do. And of course, conflicts of interest, which means you cannot fund people like the mayor or anybody that was voted into office. Next slide. We do have project thresholds. They must be 100% LMI direct benefit. So every home that you do, the person must be low to moderate income based on those limits. And you can find those Section 8 income guidelines right there on that website for the HUD. We have a minimum scope of work of 8 homes. Like I said, you can do as many as you want. You just have to do 8. And we have to, you have to provide and show that you have adequate project policy and procedures set forth in a manual and a contractor manual, which demonstrates their ability to achieve that scope of work. So any contractors that you hire, you have to show that you have, you know, they're bonded, licensed, and they can actually do the work. And you also have to provide and establish a qualified administrator and housing inspector. It says recommended, but you will not get points if you don't have that in the application. Next slide. The application ranking criteria, of course, is 100 points, and it's broken down into project need of 20 points, project impact of 20 points, coordination of resources of 30 points, and your project readiness of 30 points. These will be a little more in depth once the guidebook is out there. You can go to our website now and see our last year's guidebook. There will be minimal changes this year. So if you want to get an idea of what we're going to look at on that need, impact, readiness, and resources, it will be laid out for you already. But again, we're just going to be making some slight changes. Basically, it's going to be the number of homes required, the amount, small changes. So next slide. And that's it. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat along the side of the website here, and I can answer anything I can help you with. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kara. Very informative, very informative. And the when the new guidebook comes out, let's get together. We'll put that link to that on the website as well, along with the recording and anything else that that you guys may have as marketing or additional information for this. But very informative. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Amy Bashidi. She is with the Community Revitalization. She is the Community Revitalization Planning Specialist 2 with the Strategic Planning and Reporting Department for the Illinois Housing Development Authority. Amy, are you ready to present?
I am, and I always like when other people read off my 12-word title.
Like Courtney just said, my name is Amy Bashidi. I help run the Community Revitalization Planning Program here at IDA. Community revitalization plays a really prominent role in ensuring the health and success of Illinois communities. And so IDA is therefore a strong proponent of these processes. You can advance the slide, please. And so at IDA, we think about community revitalization as having 3 different areas. But we also want to make sure that our strategy is a deliberate, concerted, and locally approved plan or interconnected series of local efforts with local stakeholder support intended to improve and enhance specific aspects of a community. Next slide, please. So those 3 areas are economic development. So that can include improvements in infrastructure, business growth, and downtown or other target area revitalization. Housing development, including infill development and reduction of residential blight. And community development. So that includes increased public safety, walkability, community engagement, and even improved stormwater management. Next slide, please. So since adding community revitalization as a 10-point incentive in the 2016-2017 qualified allocation plan, IDA has been able to define plans in a flexible manner for the state of Illinois. And we can also incentivize developers to build affordable housing in communities that have a plan for it and community support behind it. IDA is committed to expanding the capacity of underserved communities in Illinois, to identify those local housing needs and to empower those communities to take steps to meet those needs. So that's why IDA also reaches out to communities across the state to form partnerships to build upon and link to any existing planning efforts, to identify strengths and needs within the community, and to otherwise generate localized capacity via a community revitalization strategy process. Next slide, please. This process may result in increased local capacity to connect housing and economic development and community goals, and may help bring affordable housing to the community by helping to mitigate those barriers of access to the housing development tools. Next slide, please. In the 2022-23 QAP, IDA laid out the following indicators to define the mandatory thresholds for the 10-point incentive. So those are a defined community revitalization strategy and area. So we've discovered that community revitalization strategies that focus on specific contained areas can work best. So these areas can align with your CDBG target areas, neighborhood strategy areas, HUD choice neighborhoods, special service areas, really, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. A larger comprehensive plan for a community can be the basis for a more focused community revitalization strategy. And many do in fact draw out those specific neighborhoods for particular goals and objectives, because we all know those different neighborhoods and communities may have different needs even within a single municipality. So a community revitalization strategy should address a community with a need for a specific revitalization, whether that's for demolition and greening, infill development, single family rehab, overall greater walkability, or just safe, decent, and affordable housing. So that second threshold criteria is also a consideration of affordable housing. So we want to make sure that that strategy targets affordable and workforce housing in order to prevent displacement of lower income residents when the strategy begins to bring those greater investments into the neighborhood. Neighborhoods that undergo revitalization might see decreasing vacancy and crime, and resulting gentrification has the potential to displace longtime community members. So the revitalization strategy should benefit current community members and ensure that the housing remains affordable, while also addressing concentration and isolation of affordable housing by promoting mixed income and mixed uses. Then we have community participation. Local resident and stakeholder participation in the creation or guidance of a community revitalization strategy is 100% crucial to the strategy. It should take input from community meetings, public comments, SWOT analyses, and design activities. Participation by those community-based organizations is also key, because those organizations can help shepherd the strategy through implementation. Then we want to see plan adoption, approval, or support by a local champion, again, because we want to make sure that these plans are not staying on the shelf. The resolution or adoption should clearly state the community revitalization strategy's goals and objectives, and making sure that any plan is funded and implemented rather than, again, just gathering dust on a shelf. So if we don't have community or the city's passing a resolution or an ordinance, then we can also go with a local champion or quarterback that can help shepherd that implementation and that funding through, that has the capacity for mobilizing that cooperation. And then finally, we want to see economic development integration. So we all know an effective community revitalization strategy will also address economic development within the strategy area. Residents need access to meaningful jobs, as well as the ability to run their daily errands within the community. So goals and objectives that encourage new businesses to form or relocate within the strategy area promotes the substantial revitalization of the community. We also like to see infrastructure improvements such as streetscape, encouraging pedestrians, any new zoning ordinances, anything that's going to help revitalize the community. And give residents an access to a range of community amenities, such as healthcare and supportive services, public transportation, quality educational facilities, parks, recreation, et cetera. So really just enabling local residents as well as non-locals to be part of a complete community. Next slide, please. Since instituting the Community Revitalization Program in 2016, followed by the Technical Assistance Program in 2017, tax credit applications and awards have increasingly gone to communities or to applications that documented community revitalization in their communities. In fact, last year in 2021, allocated in May, half of awardees documented ongoing community revitalization strategies in their communities. But IDA also recognizes that there are large swaths of the state that are just unable to access community revitalization, no matter how permissive the process is intended to be. And so smaller communities across Illinois often lack that capacity to pair planning with community revitalization in their communities. And so in early 2016, a decision was made to make changes to help all communities throughout Illinois gain access to that community revitalization. Underlying reasons for this are applications that are more fully realized and integrated in their communities. Also helps us reach new parts of the state that need affordable housing, but have been unable to access IDA due to capacity or lack of understanding. And also it's just good policy. And so our community revitalization technical assistance program offers a number of individual services to communities, including a housing stock survey and a funding strategy. But most communities sign on for the full process in order to wind up with a community revitalization plan that will be worth 10 points in the LIHTC application process. The process typically takes 12 to 18 months, but it's comprehensive and may make your community more competitive when applying for federal and state funding programs. Next slide, please. By undertaking this community revitalization strategy endeavor, IDA believes these partnerships will contribute to the expansion of local leaders' capacity to see affordable housing as part of their community's potential growth, and to include an appropriate variety of these opportunities in their planning. Housing developers can also benefit from this activity, as the plans developed by or in conjunction with our TA program will help to provide an understanding of current housing needs and the low-income housing tax credit process. And also investors are more able to connect to and utilize the market analysis tools and funding sources that are identified by the strategy. Our community revitalization team works directly with communities free of charge, linking those communities to existing endeavors and providing direct technical assistance to small and rural communities across Illinois to increase local planning capacity and integrate planning for affordable housing into larger community revitalization strategies. These activities benefit communities in determining what their actual needs are regarding housing and community development, and planning to meet those needs while setting point incentives in the QAP that can attract developers and investors to the community. Next slide, please. If your community is interested in finding out more about what our technical assistance program can do free of charge, we have an intake form on our website that you can fill out. It doesn't take very long. Once we receive the form, we can set up a call to discuss your community's needs and goals, and then we can lay out a scope of work agreement and a timeline for the planning process. Communities that participate in our CR planning process agree to take on the work plan, including outreach to local stakeholders, recruiting and organizing volunteers, and producing written goals and objectives for their plan. Our planners can provide technical assistance with the individual steps of the process and help produce the final plan, but ultimately the plan belongs to the community. As the state, we don't want to plan for you. We want to help you plan and be able to access the funding and resources. So the documentation is the full document produced when the community synthesizes all the information from the process and creates goals, objectives, and strategies to meet the community's housing and community revitalization needs. We can help coordinate with state, regional, and federal agencies to meet the planning and implementation needs, and also strategically plan for future housing and tax credit development. It can become a calling card for the community to attract investors who can be assured that sufficient planning and public engagement can support the stated goals. The final service included in the full community revitalization planning document is a development resources and funding strategy. In addition to the full menu of IDA programs and resources, our planners can assist communities in seeking out available funding and programming from philanthropic partners, local, state, and federal agency partners, and other organizations. And we can provide, where possible, ways to access planning and implementation funding. Again, ensuring that the plan doesn't just sit on a shelf gathering dust. Next slide, please. So while IDA's approach to community revitalization is highly individual to the community in question, we have a general approach we take that begins with analyzing the community's market characteristics and researching existing IDA resources and housing, other state and federal agencies' presence, and local resources. Based on publicly available data from the US Census and American Community Survey, IDA's CR staff is also able to analyze demographic, economic, and housing data over time and begin to show how current development in the community may be impacting current residents and businesses, as well as how future trends may need to be addressed. Next slide, please. One of the most basic parts of a community revitalization strategy and is required for consideration in the LIHTC process is community outreach. The engagement of local community members and stakeholders is essential to a successful planning process and is the first step to ensuring future implementation and success of the plan through public support. One way to reach out to community members is via a needs assessment survey, which is widely distributed to local residents and stakeholders, and we can do both paper surveys and online. IDA's CR staff then analyzes those data to present at future community meetings and ultimately contribute to a full housing needs assessment planning document. After meeting with stakeholders and analyzing any community input received from surveys and meetings, IDA is able to present those data in graphic form for discussion and potential development by the community into goals and strategies for community revitalization. Community participation is a crucial piece of revitalization planning, and a broad range of stakeholders is important to bring in fresh perspectives and to enhance the value of final decisions. IDA CR planners meet with local elected officials, community-based organizations, churches, schools, and residents to make sure that all new plans meet everyone's needs. Next slide, please. IDA also offers a housing stock survey, excuse me, as part of this free service. Volunteers, preferably from the community itself, will walk each block in the community and rate each building based exclusively on its exterior appearance and apparent maintenance. This sidewalk survey of each structure in the community allows IDA's community revitalization planners to identify specific programming to address specific issues, such as the need for roof repair or a need for demolition funding. Next slide, please. Understanding the overall characteristics of a community's property and housing stock and the geographic patterns and concentrations of properties can help a community to outlay and support its assets, prioritize needs, and create efficient and targeted plans for redevelopment. Next slide, please. There are countless possibilities. Hang on, I lost place. There are countless possibilities and creative ways to establish successful development plans. Where unoccupied single-family residential properties are in livable or better condition, there may be potential for home ownership programming. Next slide, please. Where there are occupied single-family properties that are in need of repair or in livable or in good condition, there may be rehabilitation and home modification programming available. Next slide, please. And finally, where unoccupied single-family or multifamily properties exist that are in need of repair, major investment, or demolition, there may be potential programming aimed at reducing blight and mitigating abandonment. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. So finally, IDA offers a number of market analysis tools on our website. Each of these tools utilizes publicly available data, such as the American Community Survey and US Census. And we can display the granular data by census tract that IDA uses to make financing decisions. Additionally, many of these tools contribute directly to scoring incentives in the qualified allocation plan. The Affordability Risk Index there on the left is a market tool that is incentivized in the LIHTC program. The tool, which again uses entirely publicly available data, measures change over time and indicators that tend to signal decreasing affordability in a census tract, such as median household income, housing unit vacancy, and number of individuals with a bachelor's degree or higher. In the middle there, the Affordable Rental Unit Survey measures the number of rental units in a specific census tract that are affordable to households earning various percentages in the area median income. And on the right, one of our newest market tools, which was released on our website in 2020, the IDA Market Analysis application summarizes economic, demographic, and housing information based on the market area that a user selects. The market analysis application provides functionality that enables the user to find the address of the development and interactively select the census tracts on the map that compose the market area for the development. Next slide, please. The Opportunity Area widget on IDA's website displays census tracts with low poverty, access to high quality jobs, schools, transportation, and amenities. But because these indicators change with each annual release of census data, the Opportunity Area designation expires after 4 years. We introduced it in 2015 with heavy point incentives, and it immediately changed the way the development world interacted with IDA and led to a significant uptick in applications from previously underrepresented areas of high opportunity. However, the opportunity areas are being phased out in future QAPs in favor of community revitalization and our brand new Quality of Life Index tool. Revitalization impact areas there in the middle are targeting geographic areas that demonstrate the most salient market conditions that indicate that concerted community planning would be especially beneficial. These areas can be worth up to 2 points in the community revitalization incentive in the QAP. And the Quality of Life Index is a statewide tool intended to determine areas of high livability within Illinois, and is designed to bring awareness of the details that make communities strong and those where the communities can improve the quality of life for their residents. This aspect is also worth up to 10 points in the LIHTC QAP. Next slide, please. Now, IDA's intended outcome is to help communities create a community revitalization strategy that can accomplish the following goals: strategizing future planning and investment in the community, establishing linkages to ongoing community initiatives for economic development, education, healthcare, food access, et cetera, identifying realistic housing goals and needs for the community, coordinating with state, regional, and federal agencies, as well as local organizations to help meet the planning and implementation needs of the community, identifying potential funding sources for plan implementation, identifying financially feasible models for meeting housing needs to be enacted locally. It can become a calling card for the community to attract investors. We can help form a working advisory group to supervise ongoing implementation of planning strategies and to strategically plan for future tax credit development sites if the housing needs analysis and financial feasibility indicate this is a viable outcome. Next slide, please. And so you can email us at revitalization@ida.org, or you can check out our community revitalization website for more information. Thank you.
Awesome job, Amy. Wow. Wonderful presentation. A lot of, info packed. A lot of good info on that, and a lot of good market research tools there on your website too. Thank you for covering those as well.
Absolutely.
So a reminder to everybody, after our presentations, we will have a Q&A session. So if you've not set in one of our webinars before, we go through the panelists first and then have a Q&A on the back half. Please put your any questions or comments that you'd like to be addressed in the chat. And next up, we have the mayor of the city of Paris, Mayor Craig Smith, and Jane Lorsch, with who is the executive director for the Labor's Home Development Corp, housed out of Bloomington, Illinois. Craig and Jane, are you guys ready?
We are.
We are.
Awesome.
As Courtney just said, I'm Jane Lorsch, the Executive Director of Labor's Home Development Corporation. And joining me for this presentation is Mayor Craig Smith with the City of Paris. Labor's Home Development Corporation and the City of Paris and Mayor Smith have worked together, as you'll see as we go through this, on several affordable housing developments in that city. And it just kind of goes to show how public and private partnerships really do work.
You know, the good thing is you all have done something that my contingent and my folks at come to City Hall have been trying to do for years, is put a muzzle in my mouth, I think. What I would like to say is that from a city standpoint, you need to have a relationship with a developer. And we have been very fortunate to have a great relationship with the Labor's Home Development Corporation for 3 very successful affordable housing projects that started in about 2008 with the construction of the first one in 2010 and 11. From a standpoint of what I think your governments, your local governments need to do, is you have to have an acceptance or a recognition in your communities that there is a need for affordable housing. If you don't have that, then don't waste your time. You've got to know, and then you've got to work with somebody like Jane and her great organization. Take over, Jane.
Thanks, Mayor Smith. This slide that you see here is the first development we did in the City of Paris with the mayor. It's Maple Ridge Apartments, 50 units of affordable family housing, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. As the mayor said, it was constructed in 2010, 2011 with an $8 million budget. It was actually approved for low-income housing tax credits, and the project was getting ready to close escrow in 2008. And then we all know what happened in 2008 with the economy, and therefore we were not available to sell a tax credit to anyone for any amount of money. So the project had to sit on hold for a little while until Ida and the investors and we as a developer could figure out how to get this project off the ground financially. And that's when the TCAP and 1602 programs were introduced, and they were looking for shovel-ready projects of affordable housing, everything in order, ready to go. And Maple Ridge was the picture perfect project for these funds. Next slide, please. And as mentioned, it's affordable housing. Maple Ridge Apartments has 50 units, but it also has an outdoor gathering space, has its own playground for the children of the development. Next slide, please. This is a photo of a completed unit, occupied. The appliances you see here, stove, refrigerator, microwave, are all furnished with the appliance. We also pay the water, sewer, and trash bills. The tenant pays gas and electric along with their TV, internet services, should they choose to use them. Next slide. In the center of the development, there is a community building that houses a computer lab for tenant use, the management office, and there's also community space available, for tenants to use if they want to have a birthday party, an anniversary party, a baby shower, whatever the case may be. And adjacent to the community room is coin-operated laundry facilities, and Maple Ridge Apartments stays full with a waiting list. Next slide, please. So knowing that was the case, that Maple Ridge 1 stayed full with the waiting list, the Mayor Smith approached us and said, when are you bringing phase 2 to Paris? We still need housing. And that's when Maple Ridge 2 was born. This one is 42 units of affordable and market rate housing for families, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. It was constructed in 2015 with about a $9 million budget, utilizing low-income housing tax credits, IDA trust funds, and home funds. And this one, I know there is no such thing as a non-complicated affordable housing project, But if memory serves me right, this one didn't have too many hurdles for us to jump, like Maple Ridge 1, and then in the future, our third development. Next slide, please. So we were lucky enough to grab a piece of property adjacent to Maple Ridge 1, which is in the lower right-hand corner of this slide. Maple Ridge 2 is the main part of the slide. So the properties do share the community building. They share the management office. Maple Ridge 2 does have their own playground, so the kids aren't running across. And they have a fully lighted walking path that goes around the entire facility. Next slide. We added front porches to Maple Ridge 2, and they are very popular. We have a lot of tenants that love to decorate outside, and it's quite a sight to see when you drive through there. Next slide, please. The back doors in these units are also popular. And again, the appliances are furnished. And at Maple Ridge 2, we do offer the washer and dryer hookups as well. Next slide. So if 92 units of affordable housing wasn't enough in the community of Paris, along comes the mayor and says, we have our former high school. The city built a new high school, and our old high school is sitting vacant right on Main Street. And we all put our heads together and decided, okay, let's make it affordable senior living. This one was LHD's Labor Home Development's first ever rehab of a property that we didn't originally own. And it was our very first historic development. But we were successful in completing 42 units of affordable independent senior housing. We have efficiency 1 and 2 bedroom units constructed in 2020 with about a $14 million budget. Financing consisted of low-income housing tax credits, donation tax credits through IDA, the federal historic tax credit, state historic tax credits, and donations from the city of Paris. And I will add that at this time, the city of Paris had a community revitalization plan in place and worked with IDA and Amy to get it, make sure it was right and had all the components that were necessary. Next slide, please. It was kind of fun at Tiger Senior Apartments. We weren't able to have a traditional groundbreaking ceremony, so we chose to do a wall breaking. And with all the struggles we had to get this project closed in escrow and ready to go, it kind of felt good that day to swing a hammer. But without the dedication of Mayor Smith and the city of Paris as a community, this day would have never come to fruition. You know, one of the hurdles we had to get over is we needed a 501c3 as a partner in order to get a leg up on our state historic tax credit funding. And you know, our relationship with the city of Paris, all I had to do is pick up the phone, call the mayor and say, do you have anybody in mind? And in the blink of an eye, he said, we have something called the Edgar County Community Foundation, and they were on board as our 501c3 and really helped finalize the financing for these apartments. Next slide, please. So I've got a couple befores and afters. The rehab did not involve too much regarding the exterior of the building. We were able to uncover some long ago hidden windows due to some, years of remodeling throughout the growth of the high school. We moved the main entrance now, so it's accessible for everyone. It's completely ADA compliant. And we took care of some necessary exterior tuck pointing and minor repairs on the exterior. Next slide, please. The inside, however, was a whole different story. Next slide. This is the library area before and after. The library, of course, was vacated at the time we were there and was an octagon shape, if I remember correctly. So we added units to the perimeter there. And even after this after picture was taken, we've added bookshelves that allow for a take one, leave one opportunity in the library. And that open area towards the front of your screen, they now have a long table where the tenants gather and do puzzles. And then at the end of that hallway, they have what they call the blessing table, where, you know, you bought 2 or 3 extra ears of corn, so you throw them on the table for someone to take, or you've got an extra thing of Clorox wipes, or whatever the case may be. Our tenants use that blessing table and monitor that. And those are things that they've done along the way as they've moved in and gotten to become a community within the building. Next slide, please. So this is a second floor classroom originally. That door, those short little stairway with the door led to some attic storage space. That was an element that we were required to keep based on the historic regulations. But the door has been sealed off, but the stairs have been preserved, and they add a unique element to the dwelling unit. We actually have 2 units that have that little stairway. Some other units have some of the original built-in credenzas that were original to the 1909 school building. Some other units have the chalkboards that have been rehung and are in the units. Next slide, please. This is the trophy case, the original trophy case for the high school. It was refurbished and relocated, and it now holds memorabilia that has been donated by various Paris residents. And the elevator that you see in the after picture there on the right-hand side did not exist in the original school. That was one of the complicated issues of this project, was figuring out how to get the elevator in there. So it was added during our rehab.
Mayor, do you want to give your closing statement there of what was in the video?
Sure. I think what we were talking about in the interview was how important affordable housing is to our community, and I'm positive that it's important to all communities, and especially to everybody that's listening here. What I mentioned earlier when Jane was showing the slide project or program, how important it is as community leaders to get in front and let the community have a good feeling about affordable housing. I think there's a lot of pushback when you say affordable housing and they're going like, oh, we're not here, not here, not here. Well, all you have to do is show them the slide projects or the slide program that Jane did, to see how proud our community is of what our developer did with Maple Ridge 1, 2, and the Tiger Senior Apartments. They're as nice as any housing in Paris. Once we got in front of any of the bad rumor mill, the misinformation about Maple Ridge 1, and then once it was open, we had no issues with Maple Ridge 2. I would implore anybody that's interested in starting projects similar to what we've done in Paris is partner with a development corporation. And I can't say enough about the Labor's Home Development Corporation. Partner with Amy and the state of Illinois. Get in early. Get your businesses to support you. Get your schools to support. And by far, make sure everybody in your community recognizes that this is a good thing. Then as a community, what you should do is get out in front and look at you know your community better than anybody else. So by knowing your community, you should know where a logical place to build these things would be. Find out what you can do to help to throw a little skin in the game. What we did, we donated real estate in some cases. We helped through our commercial revitalization incentive program with repair, electrical. I sent, I think, to Courtney, the city involvement development sheet that just shows you what the city of Paris has done in different projects. And we feel that we have to have a great relationship with our developer and give the developer total support. So we try to identify real estate where we think a housing project should go. And then we try to have information of what the city can do financially to help with the program. So that's my take. We're proud of what we've done in Paris, affordable housing that looks like what you saw on that slide presentation is unbelievable. If you look around your towns at your existing apartments and affordable housing, I bet you're not going to find anything any nicer than Maple Ridge 1, 2, and my God, Tiger Senior Apartments is just will take your breath away. At any time that anybody wants to come to Paris, meet with us, Jane and I would be glad to meet with you. I'll be glad to meet with you just to show you how well it works. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, it doesn't mean that it's going to be that easy either, but it can be easy if you work with the state, with the developer, and with your local community leaders to get them behind the projects. And you can have successful, affordable housing with all of those elements in place.
And in closing, all I have to say is that's how these projects get done. The relationship with the community, with the city's leadership, between the developer and the city's leadership and the state of Illinois, you know, working in a community that understands what affordable housing is, understands the need, and then is determined to get it done. With Tiger Senior, we had an October 31st closing deadline. And at 5 minutes to 5, I called the mayor and I said, I just got word we're not going to get it done. And we had been on the phone probably every half hour throughout the day. And at 5:10, I called him and I said, Mayor, we closed. And it was a determination of everyone on board, you know, to get it closed. And IDA's commitment to community revitalization and public-private partnerships and a team where all the parties understand the importance of affordable housing within a community and having housing available for the folks that work in your community to live there, you know, so they continue to pay their taxes there in the community which they work, they send their kids to school there, and they, you know, they get to stay home. And, you know, with a community leader like Mayor Smith, can't help but get these things done.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, you guys have definitely done a lot of great things in Paris. These are some amazing projects that you've worked together. Again, I apologize, the video's not having audio, but Mayor Smith, you definitely filled in the gap there and able to elaborate on it. I'm going to say it was 10 times better anyway. So I'm a little glad they did it play. We definitely got to hear that explanation. I do have to say the wall breaking ceremony, that is very cool, and allows you guys to celebrate that milestone as well. We'll go ahead and jump into the Q&A section for the webinar here, and going off of the presentation that we just heard. Both Jane and Mayor Smith, you guys have noted working with multiple agencies, working for Laborers Home, working with the City of Paris, working with IDA, noted the Community Foundation in there. That's a lot of moving targets, if you will. You've noted that, you know, it's not all streamlined, but what was some of the biggest challenges, or how did you overcome some of those challenges in trying to work together for that public-private partnership?
I think that one of the big things is that if you have this recognition in your community before the project starts, it's going to grease the skids a little bit better. You need to have a recognition that your community needs affordable housing, and think of that. What community doesn't? But then you've got to get out in front of any kind of misinformation, because the first project, and Jane and I'll be the first to tell you, you're going to run into some issues on the first project, because the people that don't support it, and it'll be a small minority of your people, because you should have every business in your community sign support letters. You should have all of your schools, the principals, the superintendents support it, all small businesses. We literally had 50 to 100 letters that went out from individuals, other governmental agencies, the county board, the townships, the hospital, everybody signed a letter of support. Well, if you have that, you can get in front of these not in my backyard folks. And that's what really takes. And that's where you as a city leader can get involved in that. What I did with the great relationship I have with the Laborers Home Development Corporation, with Jane and all their wonderful people, was get out of their way. They know what they're doing. Ida was unbelievable in helping us get through and find out how we could get some financing. They were super about meeting with us and having open door and the phone call questions, anything. They helped us. This is truly a collaboration with a lot of people, and you got to get all these people on board. You don't want anybody to say no before you start the project.
That's very good to hear. Go ahead, Jane. Anything
Oh, I'm
else?
sorry. Well, I was just going to say that is absolute key. You know, we don't want to work in a community that doesn't stand behind what we propose to do. You know, as a developer, when we say we're going to bring affordable housing to your community, we pledge to become part of the community. And, you know, so as long as the community is behind us, that really, no matter how high a financing hurdle gets that's in front of you, you know, like the mayor said, you can always pick up the phone and call Ida and say, hey, you know, we may not be scoring this high in this area. How can we improve? Or, you know, when it comes to closing and you've got attorneys and accountants and everybody involved and they want this document and that document, you can get all that. You know, it's getting out in the beginning and making sure that you've got the community support. And then, you know, all the other hurdles are just a jump.
Well, and not to pile on to any of that, but Maple Ridge was before my time at IDA, but I helped with the Tiger Senior application and community revitalization. And Paris was so on top of the community participation. We got dozens of support letters for Tiger Senior. And it was from community members who, many of whom had gone to school there, who were so excited about the possibility of being able to live there. It was just an incredible community engagement process that Paris did basically on their own. It was really very helpful.
Thank you for validating that, Amy. Most certainly, you guys are definitely stating the importance of that public-private partnership, working together to make a project a reality. And it successfully has happened 3 times, which is definitely a testament to the Paris area. To kind of extend off of that last little conversation there, Mayor Smith, how did the city first get in contact with Laborers Home Development Corp? And did you have to convince them to come to Paris, or it sounds like you guys were prepped, but what was those initial steps?
We recognized early on in my tenure here at Paris that we were lacking in affordable housing, and it's a matter of networking. I knew somebody in Springfield who knew Mike Getz at Laborers Home Development Corporation. They set up a meeting where Mike Getz came into my office. And I think my comment is, where in the hell have you been? And his comment was, we've always been there, we're here now. And so we were able to form a very quick and positive relationship with each other. Jane took over when Mike retired and did not miss a beat. I mean, she was instrumental on this Tiger Senior Apartments. And just as a caveat, we've got a teacher who's living there that used to teach at the high school and literally got tears in her eyes when she moved into her apartment. This is what this project has meant to this city. And if you see any of these, if you ever in Paris, there's lots of reasons to come to Paris, but this is definitely one, is just to look at the projects and how successful they are and what they look like. And I don't think once that first one was built, really that we've had any questions from any community leaders or any of our constituents about the next project, and the next project. And I got news for you. I'm looking at Jane right now for another project. So we're going to try for our 4th project. And once you have a great relationship with your folks, and once you have Amy on the phone that you can call, and Ida can help us, it's a win-win situation. But the first project, you've got to really spend a lot of time. It's called transparency. And your community needs to know what you're planning and why you're planning. And then you get your business leaders behind it saying, we need our workers to have affordable housing. Nobody should push back. But as Jane and Amy will tell you, you will get some pushbacks in communities. And one community pushed back, and that was the reason we were able to move Maple Ridge 2 up, because they didn't want affordable housing. Paris did.
Well, and one thing I can say, there was one of the question and answers about suggested strategies to change mindsets related to affordable housing.
And that was going to
And-
be the next question. So yes, please go ahead.
Right. And I've actually brought a mayor from another community to Paris to visit with Mayor Smith and to tour the affordable housing, because I do feel like there are a lot of misconceptions around affordable and workforce housing throughout the state. And the only way to bust those myths is to show them how great this housing is. Frequently in a lot of these communities, the tax credit housing and other affordable housing is going to be the nicest housing in town, because we are looking at communities where the housing stock is old and they don't have a life cycle. They have big homes and they have tiny affordable apartment units and nothing in between. And so you want to be able to show, like physically show people what the housing looks like so that they can get those misconceptions out of their minds. And Mayor Smith is also an incredible booster for affordable housing.
Awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome.
And just, and just to piggyback on that a little bit, yeah, we use Paris when we're downstate as an example. We offer up visits anytime, unannounced visits. We don't care, because one of the things, we're also a management company, a property management company. So, we try to explain to the community that, this is a partnership, public-private partnership. And we screen our tenants and we background check our tenants, and, we check with their previous landlords before they get approved, and that's a requirement that IDA puts in place. It's a requirement that our investor puts in place. They want to make sure. And, when we walk into a community and we have that first visit with a Mayor Smith or whomever, we have a reputation, luckily, Mike gets prior to me, has established for us. So we can go to the communities and say, this is what we do, this is who we are. And you can go to Paris and see something that was built in was rehabbed in 2020. You can see something that was built in 2010, and the quality is still there.
Well, we've hit the 1 hour time here. We're going to continue the discussion. We hope that you stay with us. We'll continue the Q&A here. A lot of good information, wonderful presentations throughout the webinar as well. Very excited about how this is going. Next question is actually for Kara. Kara, it's more of a 2-part question. You had talked about the necessity of 100% low moderate income for the direct benefit, and had mentioned the Section 8 guidelines. The first part of the question is, how do you survey that? And then the second part of that question is, what happens if that LMI level changes between the time a household is determined eligible and then the new levels are made available?
So we have something called a housing needs survey that is outside of our regular survey that we do. It can be a mailed survey, door to door, however they want to do it. But that is basically determining who is going to, your actual clientele that you're going to actually serve. So when you do a housing needs survey, it basically asks the people their opinion of what needs, rehabbed in their home. It's signed off by a housing inspector, and that comes in with the application. When we talk about housing, it's a little bit of a different beast than our other programs. And our other programs, you have to meet a 51% low to moderate income in order to get funded. With housing, every house that we're going to rehab is 100% low to moderate income based on guidelines. We're not going to assist anybody that doesn't meet that. What we do though in the application is, in order to basically, one of the thresholds we talked about is the entire city of Paris has to meet the 51% low to moderate income. And it's based on a scale, it's a point system. You can still come in if the city doesn't meet 51%, you're not going to get as many points. And that's all spelled out in the application. So it's kind of a double, we use the survey for two things: to prove the city's LMI, that they're 51%, and then also to help prove the actual individual homeowner meets the guidelines for assistance. It's kind of confusing, and I don't know if I really answered that correctly, but if they have any more questions, just let me know, and I can, and I can share my email. It's on there, and anybody can send me their own direct questions as well.
I think you covered it. The person that wrote that question, if there's a additional clarification you'd like, please throw it in the chat, or I think maybe it's Freddie. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask something, go ahead. But copy of the recording of this webinar will be sent to everybody. We'll include the contact information for everybody that's presented today on the website as well, and any supplementary material. So we'll continue on with our questions. I just had another one come in for the Paris team. I've got one other question queued up. This is to either Amy or Kara, or both of you guys. And moving through your programs, Amy, you had noted that there's a team that helps people, but in moving through these programs and being guided, does somebody need to hire a consultant to do this, or do you guys offer that technical assistance, or how does that typically work?
IDA offers the technical assistance free of charge to communities. We have a team of 3 planners that do our community revitalization. We're the downstate office, by the way. And we are able to offer this comprehensive planning service to communities throughout the state for free. So there's no need to hire a consultant for that purpose.
And Kara, do you have a follow-up as well?
Yeah, and for the state of Illinois, what we recommend is that the city contracts out a consultant, which is typically a housing, it's a housing administrator is what we say. You can also work with your regional planning commissions. A lot of them around the state help write grants and then administer those grants once they're awarded. But yes, we recommend that. And then we also recommend that you have a housing inspector hired and you contract that out. But a lot of times, once you get that administrator, they either work with or know somebody that can help with that inspection or inspector.
Thank you. And Risa, you've got a question here. Do you want to go ahead and ask it?
Go for it. Go ahead, Courtney.
Okay. Question is to the Paris team. Given the pre-planning work your team completed, what was your biggest barrier and what would you do different? And then also, do you have a list of those best practices that you could share?
Well, I think the best practice is that the transparency we talked about. We had numerous community meetings. I went to civic organizations. Any place that they'd let me talk, I talked about the need for affordable housing. So we did that probably for about 6 months or so just to get the word out. And then we had businesses contact us, and we had meetings with businesses as well, talking about how this housing was needed for the local workforce. And then we had the school, the superintendent met with me, and we did a ham and egg thing where he was saying, I'm not opposed to this. And that's sometimes you get schools that are opposed because they think that they're going to get a lot of kids in that they don't get tax dollars for. So we try to get everybody that had some kind of an issue with other communities to meet with me and go with me to talk about how important it was. The biggest barrier we got was a little misinformation that who was going to live in the housing. And you got to get in front of it. And sometimes you can't. I'll be the first to admit it. But we had already established through our business partners in Paris with a tremendous growth in manufacturing jobs that the people that are going to live in our apartments were people who are living in Paris right now. So don't be afraid of who's going to be in apartments. It's just one of those things. And I think with that, we were able to move on, and you can't quill all of this misinformation, but you can get in front of it. And I advise you to do it. Don't let it fester.
Thank you. And what about the background information or analysis that Paris needed to have ready for the developer, or did the developer put that together for you?
For us, you mean?
Yes, sir.
No, well,
Amy's team did that. Sorry, Craig.
yeah.
Amy's
Yeah.
team did it.
Yeah, for Tiger, and I was gonna say, what I would do differently now is if I was meeting with a community in Illinois, downstate, I would ask them if they hadn't already done so, if they didn't have a housing plan in place or a community revitalization plan in place, I would ask them to contact Amy's team so that we would all know. I mean, we know that every community across the state, across the country needs affordable housing. And the need is just getting greater with everything going on. But, as a developer and knowing that it is a competitive industry, we need to know your degree of need and, where within the community the need is. So I would definitely, ask the community to reach out to Amy's team and start that process so that we know going in, where our obstacles are in the community and, where we have open road. And then our biggest barrier from the developer standpoint is time. These projects take a long time, and there's really nothing we can do to break down that barrier, I don't think. Our wheelhouse is low income housing tax credit. That's what finances the majority of these developments for us, and that's what allows them to be affordable. And it's a very, very competitive industry, and we have one shot a year with an application. So I think our biggest barrier is time.
Thank you for sharing that. And so, Amy, how would a community get started?
Well, we actually, on our website that I listed on the slide, you can access an intake form for our community revitalization program if you're interested in some part of the process for your community. Typically, the steps for that are you fill out the form. We have our own internal meetings and processes about it, and then we set up a call to think about to brainstorm together what the needs might be, how long the process might take, if there are specific services maybe you want versus other services we could offer. And so we can move forward like that. Again, there are only 3 of us on my staff, and we do cover the whole state. So there is a little bit of a waiting list, but we're not a competitive process. So if you apply, do the intake form and talk to us through the process, then we'll be able to get to you. It just may take us a little bit of time. Typically the process is, if you do the full documentation, then that usually takes about 18 months. Obviously with the pandemic, that those partnerships have taken a little bit longer because we can't meet in person as easily. But those are starting to come back down to the 18-month mark. So it's been helpful for upcoming tax credit rounds. We actually did have a planning process in Peoria that resulted in a tax credit award, and we've had 3 or 4 adopted by their communities since then. So it is a long-term partnership, but we like to come and you really get to know the community and meet community residents and meet the organizations and work with the schools and the churches. And so we really try to become part of the community and make ourselves well known.
And Amy, I'm assuming not all the intake forms, not every project is a go. At what point does IDA say no to a project or a community?
We've actually never said no to a
Oh,
project.
awesome.
But again, we can help kind of whittle down any services that might be best or best left off. And again, at this point, it really is just a matter of us having the space in our schedules to be able to get there. At the moment, we're telling folks who are interested in full processes that we can get started in the fall of this year. So it's just a matter of our time and bandwidth.
Awesome. In the chat, and I believe these are directed to Jane, there was a few questions. Is there an option for closed captions? And then another question was, what company do you use to close? If that's something that you're willing to answer.
The closed caption was, I thought maybe about the video.
Yeah, I think that's regarding the video.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I read them
closed
both
captioning.
together.
Yeah.
I was like, I wasn't quite sure. Yes, that makes sense. Sorry. All right. What about what companies do you use to close?
The closing process is extremely complicated. We work with, I mean, the title company is Title Services is the one we use mainly out of Chicago, but you know, our investors and IDA and our attorneys and everybody, I mean, the closing process kind of goes through there, but the actual title documents, we have a tendency to use Title Services out of Chicago as our closing company.
Thank you.
And they're super easy to, like, you know, the closing company seems to be easy to work with. And I'm not indicating that IDA or our investors are not. It's just, you know, you get 4 or 5 different attorneys from 4 or 5 different entities all wanting documents that have different sentence structure. You know, it takes a while to get everything to get to the closing company.
Thank you. Thank you. And in the chat, Allied Capital Title made a comment that they are in the market and happy to help along the way. And they work in each of the 6 communities or 6 counties that are part of the community navigators.
Awesome to know.
And if you have any additional questions, please throw them in the chat. We will have a hard stop at noon. I do have a question for the panel as a whole, and this may take us through the end, but is there a program that helps reuse or repurpose the overhoused properties or that overhoused individual? And for example, an individual living in a large home can't handle the utility bills, the stairs, shut off part of the house, etc. Person moves out of that house and into an affordable housing unit. Are there any programs that could assist to get that large single family home back into the housing stock of the community and be repurposed?
From IDA's perspective, we're actually hearing a lot about this from the communities that we're working in, and it's a matter of the life cycle of housing. Many of these communities have those big old homes that were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s. And the homeowners, as you said, are getting older and may not be able to maintain or stay, but there's no housing for them to move into in the community. And so we do work with a lot of communities that are looking to really just better their life cycle of housing so they can have more young families come in, they can keep seniors in the community close to their support systems, they can have college students when they're finished with college, if they want to come home, they have a place to move to when they do come home. And so I do think we are hearing a lot about that in the communities. And we have, the tax credit process is a good way to get new affordable housing in your community. IDA has a number of single family rehab programs that are available that the municipalities can apply to help with individual home repair issues that may need to happen, new roofs, new accessibility for folks with mobility issues. We do have a number of programs through IDA that can help with that, but there's no, I think the life cycle issue is becoming more to the forefront in most of the communities that we work in.
Tara, Jane, or somebody else, would you like to add to that?
Well, with our program being federally funded, it has to be owner occupied in order to do the rehab of the house. So we, yeah, we can't, I mean, I don't have a program that would help with that, but, saying that, I mean, what cities and municipalities need to keep in mind with the program is, a lot of people don't understand, you apply to the program, free money, there's no match funds, will come into that town and you can cherry pick throughout the city of what houses you're going to rehab and help. We also do lead. That's a huge part of what we're doing these days. And in fact, we're, it's almost every house pretty much has that lead remediation going on in it. We used to have an area where it was just targeted, where you could only work in certain parts of the town that met LMI, but we changed that a couple of years ago. So now you can pick and pull homes anywhere within the city limits. So if you have 10 homes and you have 2 in one area of town or a whole street, you can concentrate like that. So I just want to, stress to you that the program does not have match. The city comes in, we give them $650,000. You can put as much towards it, that home that, qualifies. And it really, really comes down to the reversal of someone's life. And that's kind of what we want. We're not going to build new houses, but we're going to reverse areas that, really need that cleanup look. And in turn helping those people, live in a safer environment.
Thank you. Jane, is there anything that you would like to add to that question?
I don't have anything at this point to that question. We don't.
Understood. No, certainly.
Yeah, home ownership isn't in our wheelhouse.
Yes.
The only thing is I do know, to piggyback off of Amy and Ida, Ida does periodically come out with down payment assistance for, young families to buy homes too. So if there's folks out there that aren't aware of that Ida exists, and they're looking for a home that maybe a senior has vacated to move into Tiger Senior Apartments, which the situation that the example in your question is, I mean, just a portrait of what's happening in Paris right now, because, the folks are moving into Tiger, but I think letting people know that, the state does offer different forms of down payment assistance is a help for a younger family looking to buy a home.
Thank you.
From a city standpoint, Freddie Beth Schmutty's on the line here, and we have constantly been looking for grants and help. Ida has helped, DECO has helped with trying to do revitalization of existing homes. And that's going to always be an issue in your community, because the houses are not in good shape. Folks that are moving into apartments may not have the wherewithal to keep the house up, want to try to set it up so they can sell it. So Freddie Beth has been working with the city of Paris, trying to look for any and all grants that we can use. And she may be able to comment on that.
Well, I think that what Paris has done over the last several years, Mayor, is worked through the Regional Planning Commission, and they've been the ones that have the expertise for housing and rehab. The negative is that, and I think it'll change perhaps this year, because as Kara mentioned, the increase in funding, as important as it is to do at least a couple of houses, it doesn't make the same impact as being able to go in and do a block, for example. But Paris has been fairly persistent with the Regional Plan Commission to get as many dollars as they could from that CDBG rehab program. I think what's particularly important is the idea of perhaps developing our own local programs to deal with those that need those properties that need to be repurposed and brought back into the community for family housing, particularly if they haven't lived out that life cycle that Amy was talking about.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you.
I add one thing to what Freddie.
Yes, please go ahead.
Another thing that changed in the program just recently, and it was last year, I think the first year we did it, is you can now come in every year. We used to have a 2-year because we wanted to see progress, but we know that in order to make an impact in the area, if you come in every year, you can take 10, then you go to 20, then you go to 30 homes. So you don't have to wait the longer time period to come in for a grant. You can come in every year and, fund as many homes that you can with that money. So that was a big change. We used to do every 2, and now you can come in every year. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you. Oh, I've enjoyed this discussion significantly. A very big thank you to our panelists for presenting to us today and educating us on the matter of housing development. I don't see any additional questions in the chat. I want to give one more opportunity to our panelists. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or that you wanted to discuss or say prior to us logging off today? Kara, is there anything else?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. And my email is on the slideshow. So if anybody wants to reach out, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, how about yourself?
Same as Kara. Thank you everyone for your attention and for being here today. I hope that all of the information I threw at you, some of it stuck, but otherwise please email us at revitalization@ida.org and we're happy to chat anytime.
Mayor Smith, Jane?
As I said before, we love to show off our stuff. And Amy knows anybody that wants to come to Paris, and Jane told you, you don't have to let us know, just show up. We'd love to show you around, see how successful affordable housing projects can be done. And we couldn't be prouder than what we have established in Paris. So come and see it. Take pictures, let your community know about it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think very appreciative of the open invitation to everybody. And I think there's some people that are definitely eager to come and see the great things you've done. Jane, any final comments?
No, I'll just say ditto to what Mayor Smith said. And Amy and Kara, thank you all for your attention. Thanks for inviting us and letting us brag a little, as well as hopefully inform. Labor's Home Development, we're not exclusive to Paris, even though we do have 3 developments there. We have about a little over 1,000 units that we own and manage, or we just manage. So, I'd be happy to continue discussion with anyone who may be interested for something like that in their community.
Thank you. I think all of us are very interested in doing something by the means of housing development or residential development, if you will. Definitely something that is not centric to just our area, but through the state as a whole of housing needs. So very appreciative for your guys' presentations today. Very informative. There will be a copy of this recording on our website. That's www.ilbusinessnavigators.com. We are the Business Navigators of South Central and Southeastern Illinois. We're a 6-county partnership. You can see on the screen there that is Coles Together, Sullivan, Illinois Chamber and Economic Development, Crawford County Development Association, Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, Paris Economic Development Corporation, and the F&M Regional Growth Alliance. We host these webinars on the last Thursday of each month. Our next webinar will come up in May, on May 26th at 10:30, where we're going to start discussing the initiatives around childcare, local and state initiatives. And so we'll put out information about that, and hopefully everybody registers for that as well. And with that, again, a big thank you to our panelists. Thank you for everybody that attended today. We hope that you found this presentation informative and that you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.